All right, we're starting in about 15 seconds. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's workshop. My name is Brian Cofrancesco, and I'm the Leadership Development Coordinator for the district and a proud member of the Kiwanis Club of Meriden, Connecticut. I'm pleased to welcome you to tonight's workshop, Making a Regional and Global Impact with Club Funds. This is the third session in our virtual workshop series. And if you haven't heard, every Wednesday evening for the next few months, we will offer a workshop or learning opportunity at 7 p.m. Earlier this week, we announced our January schedule and our registration link via email. If you are not currently receiving those emails, please send us an email at the email address that will drop in the chat, education@newenglandkiwanis.org, and we will look into it. And if you haven't seen the lineup, you can find it on our Facebook page or on our Facebook group. Elise has put up some really great graphics promoting the workshops that we have coming up in a few weeks. So before we start tonight's workshop, some housekeeping. We ask all attendees who are joining us on Zoom to please mute themselves to ensure an uninterrupted presentation. If you're new to Zoom, the mute button is in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, and a line through the microphone indicates that you are muted. And you just need to click or tap that to put yourself on mute. We invite you to keep your cameras on. It's really nice to see everyone's faces and feel like we're in an in-person meeting. And you're all invited to introduce yourselves in the chat if you'd like, your name and where you're from, and anything else you'd like to share with our attendees tonight. If you're watching us on Facebook this evening, please comment on the live stream if you have any questions. And if you're here on Zoom, you can post your questions for our presenters in the chat, and we will have some time for Q&A at the end. Our presentation tonight will be 1 hour, and we are streaming on Facebook, and we are also recording this to upload to our district YouTube channel. So let's get started. Tonight, you will learn how your club can expand its impact with contributions to the Kiwanis Foundation of New England and the Kiwanis Children's Fund. Our presenters are David Peterson, President of the Kiwanis Foundation of New England, Christopher Holden, President-elect of the Kiwanis Foundation of New England, and Bart Stevens, past governor and Kiwanis Children's Fund Northeast Ambassador. Our presenters will tell you about how these Kiwanis foundations represent you and the work that they do, not only in our region, but also internationally, and how your club and individual contributions can make an impact. So to get us started, I will pass things over to Dave and Chris from the Kiwanis Foundation of New England, and we'll hear from Bart in a little bit. So gentlemen, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, everyone. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us. I see some familiar faces out there. And we're going to start tonight by, of course, always mentioning that everyone who's a member of the Kiwanis Foundation, or actually a member of New England Kiwanis, is a member of the Kiwanis Foundation of New England. So it is our foundation. I hate when I hear people say like yours. It's all of ours. So and we definitely are trying to give back. Obviously, we're doing it through, as you can see, club grant opportunities. But also, you are probably many of you familiar with the work that we've done with the Tufts Medical Center, now at Tufts Children's Hospital over at KPTI. So here's a slide just showing our executive board, all members of Kiwanis, and our grant committee, which is in this particular seminar the most important, because they're the folks that look at all the applications. And thank you for Chris Holden, by the way, who's running the stream here for me, so we'll follow along with the slides. So I'm actually going to go off slide here for a second, because one of the ways that, of course, the initiatives that our club support is the hospital. So as well as club grants, but I just want to definitely mention the hospital. Coming in February, it's 40 years actually that the Kiwanis Foundation of New England and KPTI have had this joint partnership. And over that time, we have saved countless lives and injuries with the injury prevention programs. So I would encourage everyone who, if you have not ordered any of the materials. They're all complimentary thanks to the donations of Kiwanis clubs and Kiwanians over the years. Just go to, I see it right there, kpti.org. You can click on that website and there is a list of materials. Some of them are the most popular being this one right here, that temperature sensitive ducky that obviously helps to prevent burns in young kids. They do have these as well. The outlet, where we go? Here we go. They no longer have the logo of the hospital. This is kind of an old one, but you get the picture. And bicycle safety materials. Of course, many clubs still run the bicycle safety programs. So just a whole lot of things that over the years our foundation has helped support, and bicycle safety stickers for the back of car seats for kids. So ton of stuff, and it's all free. So definitely take advantage of that. And because not only are we getting the materials, but most importantly, we're getting them out to Kiwanians and people in our communities, and that's really the most important thing. So in a big event, 40 years, I know the hospital was hoping to plan some sort of event for our 40-year anniversary. So that's probably been postponed for the time being, but we can look forward to something for that. And by the way, our foundation last week turned 67. So that's our Kiwanis Foundation of New England. So certainly we've had a good long run and definitely deserving of applause that I see there. So, so how else does our foundation help our clubs and our individuals? Well,
Okay, thanks.
first of all, I see this slide here. How do we support all these endeavors? Number one, for our club grants, it's through annual club gifts. We send out a letter to the leadership of clubs every year. Typically, it's in the early spring, late winter. So that one hasn't come, although to be honest, we've gotten some club gifts. Some clubs have already budgeted and sent us checks. Thank you very much for those clubs that have done that. We do get individual gifts from members during the course of the year. And we also have what we've had very popular the last 7 years, especially for those who love pins, but this is last year's pin, but it's our sustaining membership pin. And thank you for all of you who have purchased your pins for this current year, which is, we really just started just recently. So you would have gotten a letter in the mail for that. It's for a donation of $50. This year we have a little extra feature in that Governor Dennis has offered his own governor's pin for an additional $5, which is a discount off his regular price. You actually get 2 pins for $55. There's details on our website. It's newly redesigned. And that is, of course, www.kfne.org. And I'm sure someone will put that in the comments and I'm sure you'll see it here on the slide. But anyway, sustaining membership pins, please take care of that. And of course, while we've had at conferences, we've been able to run some silent auctions, and hopefully we'll be able to pick up on that once again. But now we're trying to come up with different ways to raise money, especially right now with not having our conferences or not having had them recently. But so we have a couple of plans in the works on that. Thanks, Chris. So what are the guidelines? It's open to all clubs in New England and Bermuda. We have an application online, and it's $1,000 is the most that can be granted to a club over a 3-year period. So you could be a club that could get $1,000 right off the bat. If you do, then you wouldn't be able to get any additional for 3 years. But if you have a program where you have, say, $500, then you can certainly do it again within the 3-year period. Let's see. We do have some submission deadlines here. I will say those have been tied to right around when we've had conferences. So I wouldn't necessarily go off of that. I mean, when we have a board meeting, that's probably the most important thing. I would say get in any applications as soon as you can. And if we approve them at a board meeting, it can be a Zoom meeting, any sort of meeting, just get those in. So there's really no specific deadlines other than that we do have a certain amount of money available every year. So obviously when the new Kiwanis year starts on October 1st, we would start all over there. So there are limited funds, but whenever you do have an application, please get it in as soon as you can. The grant program criteria, what are we looking at? You know, helping out children certainly is something that we look at. I would say really original projects would be so important, very important. And it has to be new to your club. That's the most important thing. So it may be not new to another club, but if it's new to your club, that's what we're looking for. Because the point of having, one of the points of having the grant program is to help clubs in their communities. So we're giving back, and we want to help clubs and invigorate clubs. But the best way to do it is really through an original project, not one that a club's been doing for years and years and years. And certainly when we take a look at the application, if it's really for matching funds, if the club is putting in some money into the project, then that certainly would give your project a better possibility of being approved. So, and one other thing that's not on the slide, but I will say, make sure that it's one that give a little lead time for us because of the time that it takes to approve and get a check out to you. So it can't be one that's already happened in the past. It has to be one that is upcoming. So thinking ahead, and especially with COVID and perhaps the opportunities to do some new projects, I think, you know, there are chances for opportunities for clubs out there to help out. So what's the review process? We mentioned earlier that we do have a committee of 3 people who review the applications. If there are a whole lot, then well, each one would be ranked, but eventually the committee votes on it. And if it goes forward, the action is recommended to our board. And typically if the committee goes for it, then our board would as well. And as I mentioned earlier, disbursements made on available funds starting October 1. We have it in our budget, by the way. So we've been doing them since 2013. So I'm going to say, be able to say 8 years ago, pretty soon. But the first one was the pediatric emergency room for the Kiwanis clubs of Hamilton and St. George. So that was a nice one to be able to get started. And I know we have a list. We have some other ones that some of you may be familiar with, we've done in the past. Newtown, Lee, Pittsfield, and Sheffield, an interesting one because that was a number of years ago. They did it originally, but 3 years have passed and we approved them on a project again this past year. So they've actually had 2 different times they've been able to take advantage of it over the 7 or 8 years. Springfield, Danvers for car seats. Meriden, we heard from Brian earlier. They got some updating for STEM labs, which is, look at that photo. I mean, that's great to see. And Augusta, the playground up there. And up, staying in Maine, we have Scarborough, and they've done a number of things over the years as well. Presque Isle, again, another park and playground. Dover Cross, Fox Cross, that was the security system at a playground. So. Now, part of the program here would be the laundromat, or it's actually a laundromat or reading corner. So you can actually have a reading corner like this at places other than just laundromats, but the point is a place where children may be sort of held in one spot for a while, and it's a great opportunity for actually learn to read. And as a matter of fact, we just approved a donation for the Augusta Club up in Maine for $200. That is the maximum grant for this particular program. But if you were going to do it, I know my own club was ready to do it the YMCA, which isn't a bad place. A parent goes to work out and they bring their children. So right now that's kind of on hold, but that would be an example of a place that doesn't necessarily have to be a laundromat. So think of that as an idea. And Ava from our foundation board and the Scarborough Club We know there are great things out there. Let's work together to get them done. So definitely visit our newly designed website, the kfne.org one. You can obviously get the complimentary materials at kpti.org, but also a little bit of a history of the hospital at KPTI. And trying to think of anything else here. I know we have Chris Holden, who's helping me with the slides. Chris, I don't know if you can think of anything else here that you want to add. He might be on
No, I
mute.
think you did a great job with all the information.
Yeah, and definitely on the grants. I mean, I'm actually a little bit surprised sometimes when we don't use all of our money every year. I mean, it's nice that we get grant applications, but there's been a few years we haven't actually used all the money. So I think there probably are some clubs that have done projects that qualify, but maybe are just not familiar with this particular grant that we're offering. So that's why it's great to have these opportunities. And if you're a lieutenant governor, spread the word amongst your fellow clubs in your divisions that money is available, and we're looking to spread it out and help out any way we can. So.
Great, thank you so much, Dave. And I've gotten a couple of questions through the chat, so I'm sure we will have a chance to discuss a lot of them at the end.
Okay.
To move on to our next section, we have Bart Stevens to talk about the Kiwanis Children's Fund.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Happy New Year to you all. Hope you had a stress-free and Merry Christmas holiday season. A little strange doing it this way and not getting to see everybody. It's been well over a year now, so we've got to see most of you hands-on, but at any rate, it's good seeing the faces that are here tonight. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Children's Fund. Those of you who've been around more than 4 or 5 years at this point in time would remember that it used to be called the Kiwanis International Foundation. And then the name was changed to be a little bit more reflective of what the funds actually go to. So the name changed to the Kiwanis Children's Fund at that point in time. It's the mission of, so Elise, I'm not sure, here we go. So thank you, Elise, for helping me out tonight here on this part. I was sort of a step in, but we'll keep you entertained, we hope, here anyway. So the mission is to develop resources and transform the goodwill and vision of Kiwanians into programs that serve the children of the world. I'm not going to read all of these slides to you, but the mission is to make a difference to the children around the world, not just in our own towns that we serve, and not just in the district, as was just told, but that as Kiwanians, we're part of a much larger organization, a worldwide organization. And we need to pay attention to that piece of it as well in the process. So the Children's Fund, at least I'm going on here, is set up like the district level, like many of your club levels. The Children's Fund has a board of directors. The board of directors is separate, completely separate from the Kiwanis International Board of Directors. There are 18 members on the board, and they are from around the world, actually, in the process. And from there, the next level down are the ambassadors, of which I am one of 11 that broken up and, spread the word around the world as we are. There are five ambassadors here in the United States, and we're broken up into regions. As Brian mentioned initially, I cover the Northeast region, which is New England and Bermuda. It's New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and the Capital District. So I have a pretty full volunteer slate going on there to keep track of. And the ambassadors, beneath the ambassadors, we have every district has a chair. And that chair is the one that you will generally hear from, spreading the word about the Children's Fund. Here in New England, at the moment, we do not currently have a chair. The chair that we had to step down for some personal reasons. So we are actively looking for a new person here in New England. But moving on from that, there's enough of the background part of it. So impact, we help make remarkable things happen for kids and communities around the world. That kind of really sums it up in a nutshell of what the Children's Fund is out there and all about. And the staff at the Children's Fund, the staff at Kiwanis International can't do it by themselves. There's just no way to do that. And we need the involvement from the district level. And the district level needs that involvement from the club level for sure, helping spread the word out there. Many of us, and my own club included, we focus a lot on the communities that we tend to deal with every single day. And we sometimes unintentionally lose track of the bigger picture that's out there, despite how bad we think we may have it or our communities have it. There are children suffering all over the world, and this past year has certainly been a reflection of just how trying times can be out there. So the Children's Fund actually has 5 sort of focuses. We have the service leadership programs. That's the service programs, the Key Clubs, the Circle Ks, the Builders Clubs, those sort of programs. We have club and district service projects. We have the disaster relief. We have the Eliminate project, which we are all very familiar because that's been the most recent one, which is in the process of wrapping up. And then we still have the iodine deficiency program that's lingering out there. Now that predates the Eliminate project for those of you who've been around a while, and sort of was wrapped up, but that program still continues to need funding from time to time to help around the world. So these are the 5 real focus areas for the Children's Fund. The focus that probably comes in more for you, for us here in the United States and beyond in the way that we get the message out and we get the funds out there through, much like the New England District Foundation, is through grant programs. There are 3 specific grant programs out there. There's a club grant program, there's a disaster relief grant program, and there's the district grant program. I'm going to touch on each of those just a little bit here. So first up, we've got the club grant program. This is the one where I'm not sure, I'm going to say that most Kiwanians are not familiar with this. If they were, we would be taking more advantage of this. But if you have a project out there that your club is thinking about doing, has an idea, but don't necessarily have the resources to put this together, to do it, you can apply to the Children's Fund for some funding to help bring this to fruition. There is shows on the screen here, a guide to club gifts. Elise just put the Children's Fund website up there a moment ago, so it's in the chat feature there. So thank you for that, Elise. It's a very robust and very good website. So pretty much anything you can hope to want to know about the Children's Fund and how to apply for these grants and what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, and all the stages to get through it can easily be found online. But so I encourage you to check out the club grant program portion of this. All of our clubs are looking for projects that will make a difference in our communities, and many of our clubs, I'll speak for myself, my club with just 15 members, we don't necessarily always have the resources to pull off some of these projects that we'd like to do. We're very creative on doing projects, but sometimes it's a little bit beyond our ability on the fundraising front. So we'll reach out to the district or to the Children's Fund to see if we can get some funding for that program. They like new and creative new type of programs. The club grant program isn't designed to provide funding to ongoing projects. They're there to help out to get the project up and going for the first time, or maybe the second year into it, depending on, just what the application is. But other than that, they expect the districts to put together a really good program that is sustainable once they have that chance to get it up there and going. So next up, we have the district grant program. Sorry, I have my phone beside me here, and I was telling them earlier, our 21-month-old grandson is quite adept at FaceTiming, and he's trying to FaceTime with Papa again. So when I look down, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to ignore any of you, but he gets the focus of my attention these days, it seems. But the district grant program, so this one you may be somewhat familiar with, or you may not be somewhat familiar with. But the district receives a grant every year from the Children's Fund. And that money actually comes as a percentage. It's 15% of all the money that's raised or donated by the individual clubs. So the individual clubs will make donations to the Children's Fund throughout the year. Individuals will make donations to the Children's Fund throughout the year. And at the end of the year, we're eligible for, as a district, or for a grant of up to 15% of all the monies that were donated into that. In the past, I don't believe it's been chosen this year where that money is actually going. Generally, December 1st, they reach out to the governor and try to figure out, what the district would like to use. And then by March 1st, the district has to submit a request as to what they'd like to use the funding for. In the past, this district has typically used the funding towards our sponsored youth programs, maybe scholarships for Key Clubbers and for Circle Ks. We've used it to help with their getaways, their training sessions and stuff like that. But it's really up to the district, the governor and the board to decide what they would like those funds to go to. And they need to focus on the Children's Fund areas, though, specifically health, education, development, youth leadership development, and the such. And you can find that at the website as well. And like I said, the qualification comes at by December 1st, we're notified of when the district can make that application. The funds aren't determined until after September 30th, October 1st, when we get to see just how much money has been raised. You're going to hear more about that. The club's going to hear a lot more about that this year. There's going to be more of a focus on trying to get the funding turned in from clubs a little bit earlier. The Children's Fund would like to, this year they're going to try something a little bit new. Rather than a one-time donation, they're going to ask clubs to consider doing a monthly donation, sort of an auto deduct type, if you will, on that, so that they have a better idea of, the financial stability of the program throughout the year, rather than wondering right up until September 30th whether the clubs are going to contribute. Many clubs wait until the end of the year and see how much money is actually left in the coffers before they make the donation to the Children's Fund. Whereas ideally, that's one of those things that should get budgeted. Each year, we budget for the district foundation, and we should probably be budgeting for the Children's Fund at the same time as we do that. My club contributes $10 per member. They budget every year $10 per member towards that effect. So that's a little overview of the district grant program. You'll notice as I have been talking here, or probably rambling a little bit, the timelines are very different for the Children's Fund. The district is able to turn grants around pretty quickly. However, the Children's Fund, receiving grants from all the districts around the world and the clubs from around the world, it takes quite a while to sort through these. So their funding periods are a little bit different, and they can be found on the websites for that. I forgot to mention it though, on the club grant part. So if your clubs are interested in applying for a grant, there are 3 times they make these awards. There's a June 1st funding decision, there's an October 1st funding decision, and there's a January 1st funding decision. So for clubs right now, you'd be looking at, either most likely the January funding decision at this point in time. You'd have to have I should probably correct myself on that. It's so for January funding decisions, you have to have made a request by September. For October funding decisions, you have to make that request by June. So for a June funding for a club grant, that needs to be made by February 1st. So you got a little bit of time if a club is considering requesting a grant to get that request into them. You need to submit your letter of intent by before February 1st. And if it's approved, then they'll reach out to you and you have to complete the application by April 1st, and they'll make the decision for you. Sorry if you hear a little music in the background. My wife was listening in on this. She forgot to sign up tonight, and I'm hearing music coming out of her pocketbook over in the corner over there. So I apologize for that. And the third grant program is Disaster Relief Grant Program. We probably don't do as many of these in New England. We seem to be very fortunate that for us, disasters tend to be fewer and farther between than many different areas of the country. But nonetheless, we do have some disasters. In the past couple of years or so, we've had some severe flooding and such like that. And so if clubs come up with a need and want to submit for a grant to help out within their communities or within their area, or even within the district, this can be done at the district level as well, to put something together on the disaster relief front, we can certainly do that. And they're very responsive. As you can guess, as an international organization, they're pretty responsive on disasters that are happening around the world. And as you might also guess at this point in time, this is probably one of the programs that has the least amount of funding left in it at the moment. Given the number of disasters that have occurred over the last couple of years between the raging wildfires and tsunamis, and the earthquakes, it's been a bit of a challenge getting that particular fund built back up to where it needs to be. So we have those. I guess that's the thing to remember there at the club level is there are 3 grant opportunities out there. There's a disaster relief grant, there's the club grants, and there's the district grants that are out there in the process. So where does the money come from? I think you probably all have heard of the annual club gift program. I mentioned it a little bit a few minutes ago. Really, it's an October 1st through September 30th. Clubs that are turning money in. It should be, hopefully is for most of your clubs. If it's not, hopefully you will consider it a budget item within your, when you're thinking about doing your budgets, or if you have, I'll smile when I say this, if you have any extra resources kicking around and had not budgeted, you might want to consider participating in that now that you know that a portion of this money can actually come back to your clubs. A portion does come back to the district for sure every year. We typically will get between $6,000 and $8,000 back as a club, as a district grant to help with whatever the project may be. Usually it is a sponsored youth program, but the clubs as well can apply for those grants. So the more money that's available, the more money potentially to help with clubs to do that. The recommendation has changed over the years. It used to be $10 per member. The past couple of years, they've been trying for $12 per member. You're going to see something a little bit new this year. Even though we're through the first quarter, the way everything's been going, it's been a little bit on the slow side, getting word out there. But the Children's Fund is asking this year for clubs to make a annual consideration of $365 per club. They feel that that is a reasonable amount. That is certainly open to debate because a lot of clubs, that's a very large sum of money that's out there. But at any rate, we do need to remember when we are doing those budgets to remember the international as well as the district. So hopefully all of our clubs are looking into that. I was just doing some numbers. The next slide that you have, Elise, is not the full giving report. This was a President's Challenge. We raised about, the clubs in our district gave about $24,000 this past year, 2019 to 2020. Between the clubs and the individuals, it came to about $24,000 raised out there. This is district giving is a President's Challenge. The hope is to get a 50% participation rate, 50% of all the clubs to participate. And they set a target for that. And what's highlighted there, you can see in 2019, 2020, we were off by about, our goal was off by about 50%, but very understandable given the limited abilities to raise funds this past year and the needs that we all focused in our own communities for sure. So I think that wraps it up a little bit at this point in time. There's the Kiwanis.org/Children's Fund. Further details on any of that. It's a great website. The information's there. If you have an interest in the Children's Fund and would like to work with the clubs throughout the district, there is an opening available at this time. As I mentioned, the chair for New England had to step down. And so we're looking for an individual who can step in for the rest of this year. The chairs are appointed to 3-year terms, and this would be year number 3 of that term. So we're looking for somebody who might be able to step in for the next 9 months. So please reach out to me if you have any thoughts that you might like to consider it, and we'll take it from there. So thank you, Elise, for getting me through those slides there. And Brian, I'll turn it over to you. I'm not sure on the timing there. I have a tendency to talk fast. So any questions?
So please, again, you can submit your questions in the chat and I'll be happy to read them to Bart or Dave or Chris. So a few that have come in to me through the chat, and this question would be directed to Dave. Can clubs apply for grants if they've applied before?
Yes. The limit is it's $1,000 over 3 years. So if the 3 years have passed, then you're certainly open to have another $1,000 actually at that point in time. I think we mentioned that earlier with one of the clubs, yeah, out in Western Mass. But if you find it easier to get $333 for 3 years, you can do that as well. So if you like to have an ongoing stream for different projects, I guess you can do that. But I think most of the time we do see grant requests of $1,000.
Excellent. And a couple more questions that have come in for you on the KF&E front. Someone asked if you could talk a little bit more about how to get the sustaining member pin.
Well, quite easy. I would say go to our website. It's a $50 donation. And you should be able to click on the button there. Hopefully that's one way to do it. I mean, certainly if we can, some folks don't like to do things online, and I'm happy to send out my email address or as well to everyone. I'll type that in there if you want to drop me a line and you want to. You can, of course, send a check to our secretary, Gail Calveo, but I'm going to type in my email address anyway. If you have any questions on that, or I see a question on the presentation, but try online. That's the best way to go about it. But if you have an issue, definitely get in touch with me.
Excellent. And someone asks, what do club gifts to KF&E support? Do they support the club grants or KPTI, or is it a variety of things?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it depends on the gifts. So, for instance, the gifts for the sustaining member pins, the annual gifts, those would go into our administrative general fund. But the crests on the red jackets themselves, those are funds that are specifically set aside for our funding for KPTI. So that's how we build our foundation, and we're able to continue to donate to them every year. So that's where, so if you're getting a red jacket or a crest upgrade, those funds are specifically being held for the safety programs over at KPTI. Otherwise, the funds would be going towards, for instance, our grant program. We really count on the annual gifts from clubs and sustaining membership pins and any other gifts that we get during the course of the year. If some would like it specifically made to, if you're making a gift, then and you want it, if someone wants it made specifically for the hospital, that they can do that. But I would, it's nice if we have the ability to put the funds wherever we'd like to. So if you just made a donation, that would actually be the best way to do it, because we can put it to the place where it's used the best.
And that's actually a good segue into the next question. You talked about the Red Jacket program, and someone asked if you could talk a little bit more about how that works and what you have to donate in order to get a Red Jacket.
Yep, very good question. And the Red Jackets they've been around for many a year. It sort of signifies our support of our foundation. The donation for a jacket is $1,000. However, it can be made in 3 increments, 333-ish for 3 straight years. We can do 500 for 2, but either way that would be fine. What we found over the years is that many clubs have honored a president or a Kiwanian of the year, and the clubs actually do purchase make the donation for a good percentage of our jackets, put it that way, and basically it's for honoring Kiwanians. However, we certainly have some members who start out with the red jacket, and we have some obviously over the years too with that. We have 10 levels of crest. We have 10 levels of crests when you get your red jacket. I don't know. Well, it's hard to see it here in this photo, but you start out with patch number 1. Each of the 10 patches has a different name on it, which is kind of you have to kind of look closely. I would say most people wouldn't really recognize that there might be a difference in names. However, there is, and we would certainly encourage anyone who has certainly been, say, the recipient of a red jacket, thanks to their club, that, if you'd like to go ahead and upgrade and purchase your own crest upgrade, we'll send you one of those, and it goes up to 10 steps. So just because one has a red jacket doesn't mean that your support of our foundation should stop there, put it that way. By the way, all of the different levels are listed on our website as well.
Excellent. And speaking of the website, someone asked if your presentation will be available on the KF&E website.
That's a good question. I know it's going to be on Facebook, you say, and YouTube, I believe. So I don't see any reason why we probably couldn't. But probably if I watched it myself, I might I might change my mind on that one and see me stumbling and bumbling. But we know it is available. I'm not sure on that one, but I know it's available, obviously, a couple other ways.
Yes, we can try to see if we can get that put up on the website. I think they're looking at the PowerPoint, so maybe they could give
Oh,
it
I'm
to
sorry.
Club
Yeah.
or what have you. So we'll try to make that available on the website.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I mistook that question, but it's funny too. When a few weeks ago we were on the KPTI, had the KPTI day, and they had a virtual tour of the hospital. And actually, that's something I'd like to put up on our website as well, just to give folks a feel for what's going on over there.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. And a couple questions to pass over to Bart. Bart, someone asked, how are club gifts split up among the many Children's Fund programs?
I'm sorry, Brian, can you repeat that?
The question is, how are club gifts split up among the many Children's Fund programs?
So similar to KPTI, the district foundation, it goes into the general fund, it goes into the children's general fund, but you do have the opportunity to specify where you want it to go. So if you make a contribution, you could say you want it to go to disaster relief. You could say you want it to go to, service leadership programs or to eliminate. But if you just send a donation in sort of generically, it goes into the overall fund. And it's when the money comes back to the districts, I'll point out, or to the clubs, it's really based on the entire contribution. So they don't look at where it was designated to. The percentage that comes back to us is based on the overall giving.
Excellent. And this one is for Bart as well. And I don't know, Dave might want to chime in afterwards if it has any relation to KF&E. But how has the Children's Fund responded to COVID-19 in particular? And have there been any special funds or grants or contributions that have come out of the Children's Fund?
Yes, there have been a number of club grants, and there have been some district grant applications submitted for funding to deal with COVID. But there's been a number, I can't give you the number, but I know that it's in the dozens of clubs that have submitted grant requests to deal with COVID-19, whether it be back to school supplies, helping kids that are working remotely from home and need those supplies and don't necessarily have the ability to get to them. A lot of food bank supplies over Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. So yes, that's been a very popular request in the last 6 months.
Yeah, and on the Kiwanis New England front, basically it's through our existing grant funds that we do have available. I think, well, I don't know if we've actually given any for COVID, but certainly there are funds available. If someone had a program that they were interested in doing, there's a little lead time. I think that's probably been maybe one of the issues, because if someone's looking to help someone right away, by the time we fill out an application, and certainly we'll run it through as quickly as we can. So that may have been one of the issues, but definitely, I mean, this thing's going to be around for a bit. So we have money available, and pretty much, I'm going to say anything that's a COVID related project should qualify as a brand new project. So definitely opportunities out there right now.
Hey, Ryan.
Yes.
It's Bart. I just wanted to point out one thing. Dave sort of reminded me of it a minute ago there, Dave, or from the question, the $1,000 for the red jacket. The Children's Fund also has, recognition items. At the Children's Fund, it's the levels tend to be a little bit higher, 10,000, 25,000, 50,000. But there is I should be remiss if I didn't point out the Hixson Fellowship Award. A number of individuals have that, a number of clubs give that out annually, and that's a $1,000 contribution as well. So if somebody were to donate $1,000 to the Children's Fund, they could request a George F. Hixson Fellowship be given to themselves or to a member of their club, or whatever the case may be there. Thank you.
And actually, Bart, a follow-up question on that, if you could elaborate a little bit, is can a club give out a Hixson if their club gift is $1,000, or the club gift program separate from the Hixson program?
No, if their club gift is $1,000, they could request that a Hixson be given to an individual of the club. A special member or an outgoing president is a typical person that receives this. A lot of individuals want to give an award to somebody that they're familiar with, their spouse or a member of the club, and they have the ability to do it, so they might do it individually. But the club donation can be geared that way, can be directed that way as well. And it makes it a little bit easier now with them opening up the ability to make a donation each month. So if you wanted to spread, it's $100 a month as opposed for 10 months, as opposed to coming up with $1,000 at the beginning of your year too. So gives you the whole year to sort of work up a new project perhaps, or to think about it anyway.
Excellent. Thank you, Bart. And we have a few questions left to ask. And just as a reminder, if you have questions for Bart or Dave or Chris, you can drop them in the chat, either to the group or in a direct message to me. Or if you're on Facebook, you can leave it in the comments and we will get to them if we can. So our next question is for both Bart and Dave and Chris. Do either KF&E or Kiwanis Children's Fund raise money outside of club gifts through fundraisers or corporate donors or other revenue streams?
The Children's Fund absolutely does. I mean, they have the international sponsors, but and a lot of bequests, but the primary money coming into the Children's Fund is from individuals who are Kiwanians or who have an attachment to Kiwanis, a Kiwanian.
Yeah, probably something that our foundation here in New England can do a better job of, but primarily our funds are from members. From time to time, we may get a gift or matching funds available. Sometimes it's anonymous, but probably something we could do is apply for more grants ourselves from other companies and so forth. I know we've tried here and there, but it really hasn't been as consistent. But certainly our organization would qualify for grants from other places. So that is something we should attempt to do a little bit more often.
Thank you so much. Bart, a question for you. Are there still Kiwanis Children's Fund banner patches for giving at certain levels?
There is. There is if you contribute at the suggested levels, I don't know what the patch looks like this year for the past years. They have this year, because their request is going to be different. I don't know what that patch is going to look like, but they have continued the banner patches, yes.
Excellent. And our last question goes back to Dave. Can you talk a little bit more about KPTI and what the Trauma Institute actually does?
Yeah, well, it's childhood safety is our #1 priority. So obviously we have the Dr. Schwalls over there and the incredible staff at the hospital that deal with trauma cases on a day-to-day basis. So those are children that are in accidents, bicycle accidents are probably one of the more, probably one of the larger ones that they would have. It could be household injuries, could be infants falling out of windows. So the staff there, they do a fantastic job. However, we're not the ones who can perform surgery. So what can we do? We can get the word out to as many people as possible about trying to prevent these injuries. So whether it's bicycle safety, whether it's stickers, helmets, concussions. There's some information available on that. So a lot of different things that are available. Please definitely check out that to kpti.org, and you can click around there. You'll see order forms for that. The early prevention, injury prevention program that includes that rubber ducky and the outlets, that's the most popular one. I know a number of our clubs order those and donate them to hospitals, to childcare centers, to doctors' offices. And of course, the bicycle rodeos that typically take place in May are sort of administered, or they have the guidelines there at KPTI. So it's really a case of us trying our very best to get the word out to parents, kids in the communities, how to be safe. And certainly if there's an injury that happens, the Tufts Children's Center there is there to treat them, that's for sure. By the way, too, there also is a, I'm going to say, well, I'll go into, I mean, actually, I'm going to stop there because, well, you know what, I'll mention it. I'm going to say the Hap Garish Fund, and many of you may remember Hap from Kiwanis, and he's the one who actually helped to start this entire program with the hospital. And they actually do have a website that the hospital also has joined with a network of other hospitals with their children's safety. So they do research studies and they share information, and hopefully that will either prevent or help them to assist kids that are victims of serious accidents as well. So that's something that our foundation put a lot of money into. And it's a website more or less on the business to business side rather than from the consumer side, so to speak. So, but we had a big announcement on that last year with the Hap Garish Fund.
I also believe it was one of the first of its kind for treating pediatric trauma, and also the medical flights to be able to get patients to facilities where they can be treated quicker. And also another program that KPTI is supporting is training of EMTs around New England. We have programs where they have trainers come out to help the EMTs train to better be able to respond to pediatric traumas.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. You're right.
Excellent. Well, as we prepare to wrap up, I just want to give each of you a chance to provide any closing remarks, or if you have any closing calls to action or requests that you want to share with our attendees tonight.
Well, thank you everyone for attending tonight. It's tough during the holiday week. I'm glad we were able to get as many the group that we have today. So thank you for joining. And just I guess what I would say is please keep KFNE in your thoughts. And when we send out a letter, whether it's about membership pin, as an annual club gift, just hopefully you'll keep in mind some of the great works that we've done, and we've hit so many years, 40 years at the hospital and 67 as a foundation. So every penny given goes to a good cause. And so definitely check out the website, and there's more information there. But thank you for all your support, for all of you out there, because I know there are, I'm sure, a good number of you who have supported us over the years.
Don't forget to apply for a grant. We'd love to be able to give you some money to support some projects.
Thanks, Chris. I was just getting ready to jump in and say that same thing. Don't forget to apply to the Children's Fund for a grant from the club level out there as well. Thank you to all the clubs who have participated in the past with their annual gifts, and we hope you consider to do that in the future. We all know that times are tough right now, but times are always tough somewhere. That's just the reality of the world that we live in today. and the need is great. It may not be your community this week or this month, but it very well could be, a couple months down the road or so. So like true Kiwanians, we always manage to step up to the plate, and thank you for that. Apply for those grants and have a safe and happy new year. And hopefully we'll get to see you in 2021 in person.
Thank you so much, Bart and Dave and Chris. Such great presentations tonight. And I learned a lot myself, and I'm sure everybody else joining us tonight did as well.
Great job.
As we prepare to close, I want to remind everybody to sign up for our upcoming virtual workshops. Our January sessions were just announced earlier this week. So Elise is going to share her screen and show you a list of what we have coming up. So on January 6th, we have What Do Your Members Think About Your Club, which will be about conducting member surveys with Sandra Mack and Robert Wiley from the Kiwanis Club of Hixson. On January 13th, we have past Governor Elise presenting Self-Care and Mindfulness, which will talk about tactics for caring for your mental and physical health, reducing stress, and supporting others, particularly during this pandemic. On January 20th, we have our district secretary, Stephen Hill, who will be presenting club filing and reporting, which is particularly timely as January, February, March is the season for reporting in most states. And he'll talk about those reports that your clubs must submit and file with state and federal governments. And our last session for January will be on the 27th with Jessica Plant and Donna Roberts from the Kiwanis Club. Their presentation will be socially distant service projects. They'll talk about hands-on service projects that clubs can do while social distancing. So please remember to sign up for these free workshops. Elise will drop the registration. There you go, the link in the chat. We already have a good number signed up, and we hope you will encourage your fellow members to sign up for them as well. You can find that graphic on our district Facebook page and on our district Facebook group. And we encourage you to share that with your clubs in your newsletters or through email or by tagging other members of your club on Facebook. If you did not receive an email about the workshops, please remember to send us an email at education@newenglandkiwanis.org so we can make sure you are on our email list. So with that, thank you again to Dave and Chris and Bart for participating in tonight's workshop, and for all of you for attending this session of making a regional and global impact with club funds. We hope we'll see you next Wednesday for What Do Your Members Think About Your Club? But in the meantime, stay safe, be well, and thank you as always for being a Kiwanian. Have a great night.